Tonight, we're going to do our first show on Doom for the 10th time. Welcome to Bog Panda. I'm Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram. Joining me, as always,
I am Dr. Mike at Official Pagan on everything. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, check out our new merch store. We get all the fun, uncensored t-shirts you couldn't get before. Then check out the world's shortest podcast, right here on Bog Panda. It's called Hard No. Then buy another t-shirt and watch some more videos.
New hard no every day. Your day's not complete without listening to the world's shortest podcast, and you'll be able to fit it in because it's short, very short.
Get hard every day.
Not going to be a shirt. So
could be, though.
Don't even ask. We could probably get it up on the store, but not going to be a shirt. But we do talk about Doom a lot. We're going to talk about Doom again. We at least had the good form to do this as one show. There's two different things we want to talk about, but rather than have two new shows, we're just going to do a little bit of a Doom update on just some interesting things we've come across, because it's always fun to talk about Doom. So we'll do that all the time. The first one deals with this kind of was a long-standing glitch that was very difficult to recreate. People really weren't sure how it was happening. But when it did occur, what would happen is you could then travel through walls. Projectile weapons didn't cause damage to you. You couldn't collide into anything. So you couldn't collide into a foe. If there was a button to press, you couldn't interact with it there. But you could just basically, so it was kind of a useless glitch in terms of because nearly every level requires you at the end of it to either teleport or hit a button, with the exception of a few, like in episode 1, map 8 in Doom 2, where that's one of the very few levels where you just have to end up in an area and be below a certain number of hit points, and that's what actually closes the level. But I've not, I don't play Doom incessantly. I haven't gone kind of through every nook and cranny. I have not really in my gameplay. Every once in a while I'll get caught on something, but pretty infrequent that I run across a glitch in Doom, which is to me one of the most impressive things about it. What's your experience been like, Mike?
Yeah, not too many glitches, even playing the ports. I mean, the version until more recently, I would say the version that I played the most is 32X. That I love that port of the game. I played it a lot. I have the physical copy of it, and then on Super Console X, I've played through it again and again numerous times. Super Console X also has some of the other ports, so I've been playing those more. And I recently played through the shareware version of the PC one, which is on there, which is interesting because I had forgotten. So what shareware was, kids, is games were released episodically, just like they are now, which is funny because people complain about that now and say, games didn't used to be like this. You used to just buy the game and it was the whole game. There was no DLC and things like that. But there was. Games like Doom and Wolfenstein 3D and things like that, you had to buy episodes of the game. So this isn't new at all. And in fact, just to throw another thing out there, people talk about, in-game purchases and things like that. That was in arcade games back in the early 90s. In Double Dragon, you could buy weapons and things like that by putting more quarters into the game and physically buying them. So this stuff has always existed. But the shareware version of Doom gave you the first episode, Knee Deep in Dead. So you could play through that, and at the end of it, you're just surrounded by like 50 enemies who all kill you. And then a thing pops up to buy the full version of the game or to buy the next episode of the game. So I thought that was funny. I'd forgotten that that's how it ends. Like you think you're on your way to victory and then they just kill you.
Yep. Which I think is this map 8 that is the scene that became very important for what we're going to talk about, which is the glitch. So what I was also not, I kind of knew it was out there, but I didn't realize it is as big a thing as it is. speed running in Doom. So this idea of
Yeah.
folks who are huge fans, uh, all want to kind of say who can get through the level the fastest. I think probably the reason that I wasn't really tuned into this is it's something that I would be horrific at because even as I get familiar with a level and do that, we've talked about it before. I have no sense of direction, and that translates into the Doom game where my lack of sense of direction is fully present as I play Doom, and so I'm not going to very nimbly navigate through something, even if I'm kind of familiar with what's going on. Is I would be what they would call an opponent in any sort of speed race. If someone needed a speed race win, they need to go against me because I don't think there's anyone I can beat in a speed race. It's just not my thing. Don't get it.
Yeah, that's never really been my thing, trying to get through games quickly. I do think it's interesting. The most interesting thing to me, if you want to watch videos of people playing games fast or doing some sort of speed run, is the Tetris speed players. That's insane when you see those people just destroying their hands, smashing buttons,
Yeah.
getting those pieces down as quickly as possible. I can't even register what piece is coming down, and they're like 5 pieces ahead of that already.
Yeah.
It's crazy to watch.
Yeah.
But as far as speedrunning Doom, so Doom is actually probably when I became aware of speedrunning and that this was a thing, because I remember I had the PC version shortly after got the 32X one, and the 32X got more play only because it was just more convenient at the time that I could pop that cartridge in, as opposed to, the family computer and have to make sure nobody else needed it and sit down, for hours on that. So it was just a lot more convenient to play Doom in my room on 32X. But it gives you, at the end of each level, it gives you your times, but it gives you like a par of what you're expected to hit for those times, similar to Wolfenstein 3D. And I was never there. Even I would say I can get through that shareware version of the game even now, having replayed it on the PC version, which is the levels are a little different. Um, Playing those versions of levels for the first time in years, I could still get through nearly all of them in a couple minutes each, and I'm nowhere near the part that's listed on there. So, I mean, it is something. I remember friends talking about the speed that they would get on them, which I always thought was kind of weird because it doesn't affect your ability to play through the game. It's not like you're getting a different ending or you're getting different points or anything for that. So it really doesn't affect what you get out of the game. It's not like, now it's pretty common that you'll get different items or different endings taking different paths through games. At that time, that really wasn't common. There wasn't too many games that did that. The Castlevania games started to kind of introduce branching paths and things like that, along with the Metroid games, which is where you get the Metroidvania subgenre from. Splatterhouse did it and things like that, but it really wasn't common at that time. So it was really just about bragging that you got through it faster than somebody else, which I always kind of thought was interesting, but not for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I I'm intrigued by it. I'd like to be good at it. It's never going to happen, so I have to be kind of at peace with that. So it's pretty cool. But there are people like Zero Master, who is one of the individuals mentioned in this video quite a bit, who just excels at it. It's really, really good. And he was actually the individual that worked it out. That basically, was a great mystery for folks about how this happened. There was no like really clear series of steps or events, and it ultimately turned out that it had to do with anytime you fire a weapon, uh, Doom calculates all the collisions, not just in the immediate room, but all the way through the game, and you can. Um, what was happening is that if it got to a very, very high number, there was a chance for it to generate a problem in the code and a rounding error, which is basically what eventually happens. It blows it up enough that it starts to dig into the memory and do some things there that causes the glitch. But it's a very specific thing that has to happen that is something that's very difficult to recreate. There are people that tried, like they'd stack a bunch of, let's just get a bunch of corpses and bodies in one spot to give me more of those intersection points and try and get up to that number. Very difficult way to do it that way. But well, I was just really impressed with the approach here is that there's simulation software out there where you can basically recreate the movement of your character and do different kind of scenarios. And so Zero Master kind of lined this thing up where he had an environment that's just basically he's in a room and he's firing down the hallway, and then he drifts his player off to the right where it hits the wall and registers a collision, and the variables, okay, there's a collision there. And so there he kept kind of moving it around and around, trying different types of things through the simulation, not playing the game. In fact, the simulation in 1 minute could simulate 6 hours of gameplay. So just cranked through iteration after iteration after iteration, and eventually found the spot and how to do it. And so it became, I wouldn't say straightforward because you had to still kind of get somewhat precise, but it became a predictable thing to generate. And so the video kind of shows eventually how that was figured out, and then shows, you know, the run through all the levels and the walls and all that good stuff. But just, you know, fascinating to see the kind of creativity. I was unaware of, and it makes sense, some of this Doom simulation software to kind of troubleshoot for things like this and find it out. Was pretty cool. Did you know about the Doom simulation software?
No, it makes sense, I guess. But no, it wasn't something I was aware of, but I'm not surprised. I mean, Doom has probably one of the most insane and loyal fan bases of any game I can think of. I mean, people are still porting Doom to literally anything that they possibly can. So, which I think is really cool and speaks a lot to that. Now, are you a fan of like glitches in games and looking for things like that in general?
Uh, I not so much glitches as, I mean, I think it's always kind of cool with the Easter eggs and just some extra little goodies here and there, going all the way back to Atari 2600 and Adventure. Because at that point, the coders, the people developing the software, never got credit for it unless they buried it in the game, which is what the developer did for Adventure. And there's a sequence of things you could do to basically bring up code, you know, this is who wrote it. And so that kind of stuff that was cool. Dark Forces was a good, really good PC Star Wars game that had a nice little, it was a very strange Easter egg of a kind of this rabbit that shows up, but another kind of cool thing to eventually figure out how to do and generate. So I like Easter eggs. Glitches, I'm not, you know, I'm not usually on the hunt for. I don't mind watching some of the videos of folks that have kind of will run through a whole series of glitches and stuff. So I find that mildly entertaining, but seeking out on myself, not really. Where are you at on that?
There's two games that really come to mind for me as far as Easter eggs and glitches. With glitches, the main one would be RoboCop versus Terminator for Genesis. That's a really good game. That game was ported to basically every system, and the game is very different. It's a side-scrolling shooting game in each one, but they did a weird thing where RoboCop versus Terminator was a popular comic book series for Dark Horse, and it was licensed for the games, but because of I'm not sure where the rights issue came in at, but they couldn't use the exact storyline from the comics for whatever reason. So each one kind of got its own weird variation of it. The Genesis one is easily the best version of it. Just because Genesis was a little looser with their regulations on violence than Nintendo was at the time. This is pre-ESRB ratings, so they could go a lot further, but they went so far, Virgin Games, that even Genesis was like, whoa, scale that back a little bit. So what they did, and this is just as the congressional hearings were happening and all that stuff, so they decided to kind of pull it back a little. So what they did was similar to what they did with Mortal Kombat for Genesis when it was initially released. With Mortal Kombat, you had to unlock the blood in it by putting in a code. With this, they just cut certain scenes out, and you could put in a code to unlock basically the adult rated version of it, as opposed to the mature rated version, what they would be now. So it's already a particularly violent game when you play it now, but then you can unlock an even more violent version of the game with some extra characters and especially violent scenes that you wouldn't normally get. which is interesting. But once you start delving into that, there's actually a bunch of things that are in the game that they were apparently working on. And I don't know if it's related to the violence issues, but there's just sections of the game they stopped working on. And instead of, because work, I guess instead of removing that code, they literally wall off those sections of the game. So you just can't access certain areas that were left unfinished. But using some codes and different things like that, you can get access to those. See, and including using things like intentionally glitching through walls, similar to this, where you can get into some areas that were left unfinished. It's really interesting because you can kind of see where they were going with some of those unfinished areas, and it's pretty cool. But you also run into the issue of these are glitches. Like, you're not meant to access this part of it, and you're glitching through walls and things. So the game could sometimes just freeze up, and then you'd have to completely restart the game.
Mm-hmm.
So you can totally ignore that stuff and it won't affect your gameplay. But when you start delving into it, and it's in the later levels of the game, so you do have to play through most of the game to get there. And then you're risking it just freezing up and you have to restart anyway. But it was interesting. I did play around with that. And of course, the Mortal Kombat games, those are the first games I was aware of that really intentionally put a lot of Easter eggs in there. Even going back to the first Mortal Kombat, there was hidden characters and things like that that you just weren't used to seeing in games. Mortal Kombat 2, when that came out, the first iteration of it had a lot of glitches in it because they were trying to get it out quickly. So one of the more infamous glitches, which I remember people talking about and saying that there was no way that even existed at one point. But now there's plenty of video of it online. One of the characters does a move where he slices people with these blades that are in his arms. Mortal Kombat 2 introduced different finishing moves, including turning your opponents into a baby. And there was a glitch you could do where your character would get stuck in like a cycling animation, and you could intentionally glitch these finishing moves. So one of them, for example, the Johnny Cage character will punch your head off, but he'll keep doing it. So it's like the character's head grows back and he punches it off again. It's a glitch. It wasn't meant to do that. And they quickly fixed it. One of them is that Baraka character who slices you up with the blades. You can turn them into a baby. And if you pull off that blade slicing move right away, it looks like he's slicing up the baby. That was not intentional. They didn't put that in. It's a glitch and it freezes up the game, but it's interesting. So those are the ones that I always kind of come to mind for me. I don't remember hitting a lot of glitches in Doom, which, like you said, was pretty amazing for that time, considering the scope of the game.
Yeah, and the level of customization that you could go out and build your own levels and do that kind of stuff. And you could, and I managed to do it a few times. You work hard enough, you could create. I guess it's a glitch. You could create what becomes a non-functional level where you're like, okay, well, this person just fell in there, and there's like they're done. there's no way they can get out. But yeah, it was a pretty durable, well designed, well built environment. So. So well built, in fact, that you could experience on multiple monitors. So the other thing we wanted to talk a little bit about was we'll include a link to this video as well, and it will be the step-by-step instructions that I do not have the heart or the energy or the time to go through, but this guy's brilliant in terms of really knows his stuff. But he eventually networked up 4 trashed computers that he got working and took care of, but he got 4 of them networked together, got monitors connected to them, and after a lot of trial and error and synchronization and a lot of things going on, he eventually created an environment where, much like some current racing game setups that you'll see some folks have right now, where they'll have a big monitor in front of them and a couple on either side on a slight angle to kind of give you that surround view, a larger view. So he wanted to see if he could do that for Doom. And after a lot of fits and starts, he very successfully did that. And the 4 monitors set up main front screens, that's your front view, then left and right are each side, and then you had another monitor up the top, which had the auto map going. So you kind of know where you're at, which would really be helpful to me. I think that then at least I still would suck, but I would suck less at that. That would be a really helpful thing for me. But it's, if you like to tinker, with DOS systems and PCs and all
And who
that,
doesn't these days?
that's right. It's a hobby of everybody. Fastest growing hobby in the United States. It's tinkering with DOS. And so, but
That's a shirt.
yep. But yeah, I think that we would never
Tinkering
got
with
through
DOS.
previously, but I think we can get tinkering with DOS. um, but he got it all sorted out, got it set up. Had some issues with speed initially on the main one, got all that figured out, and so looks amazing. So you got to check this video out. And in terms of what he's going on, but was interesting because the side view for Doom when you're doing that, he set up the monitors like you would for a racing game, so they're at about a 30-degree angle from the main one. If he really wanted to depict the way Doom handles the render when you kind of look left and look right, it's a 90-degree pivot basically when you do the look. So if he were to set the monitors up to really kind of accurately reflect the environment, he would have had to start to basically build a box. He would have had them sitting at 90 degrees running parallel and just kind of stuck his head in there to kind of see the sides.
So you heard it here. Kelly's going to build himself a Doom box.
Doom box. That'd be amazing. Just put big screens on the side. Wow. That's something to consider. If I only had the skill and talent, you go back and rewatch this video a lot. But he just starts eventually. He goes, and then I say this incantation and do this magic over here. And it's like, it's got this box that has, I think, all the images of floppy disks on it. So it's just feeding these system stuff because he's got some OG Doom disks of the original stuff, and because these were junker PCs, he didn't want to have his disks eaten up, and sure enough, that's what would have happened. Is he did some testing on it, so he kind of moved to a more delivering the image out, and so it's got this little device. It's got a counter on the front of it that kind of shows which track it's on, and it's running the data to the different stuff. And I'm just like, I kind of understand what's happening, but I don't. So
no, it was way above my head. It was really interesting to watch though.
Yeah, brilliant work, and it looks super cool, and it's a pretty good play. I mean, the fact that it is actually a 90-degree kind of cut on it you couldn't quite stitch all those three images together and it would be just like a seamless immersion, but it's pretty darn good because as you're moving through, you're getting the hallways going on the side, and it's a really cool thing to do. So just yet another example of someone wanting to get Doom, and he did it with all OG stuff. There was no additional processing power stuff brought in to simulate it. He did it with period accurate systems, the right version of DOS to kind of show some of that stuff off, and the shareware version we talked about earlier, the shareware version of Doom. So good stuff. Really cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need a Doom box though.
Doom box would be pretty cool.
Either that or I need a VR Doom, but original Doom in VR.
Yeah, which I'm surprised isn't out there yet. And so this, mythological VR company that we continue to pitch things to, they need to create Sega's Periscope, the electromechanical Sega Periscope game as VR. That's their first release. That's where they make millions. They're there and they're always established.
Followed up with Silent Service VR.
Silent Service VR followed up, another big hit. Now they're swimming in it, and then just to get that extra yacht, roll out OG Doom VR, which would be just wondrous. I would love to play that.
Yeah, I would love that, to be able to get a true VR and 3D VR environment of the original Doom levels.
And then maybe the VR version of the Atari 2600 Halloween.
Or at least beat him and eat him.
And on that note, I'd like to thank you all for listening. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
Bog Panda.